Hi, my name is Meg Nemi. I'm the president of Ufcw Local 49, and I'm here today with the Raise the Wage Coalition because the economic recovery of the last few years has been good for big business, but it has really left low-wage workers behind. Nearly half of the jobs that have been created since the recession are in low-wage industries that don't pay enough for workers to really make ends meet. And the increase in low-wage jobs here in Oregon is a result of corporations fueling their profits at the expense of working families. Inflation continues to outpace wages in almost every area, from basic essentials to the cost of medical care and the increasing cost of rent and housing. Despite increases in the cost of living, the Bureau of Labor and Industries has just announced that next year, workers on minimum wage will not be getting a raise, that they'll continue to be paid $9.25 an hour. This is the first time in 5 years that workers at minimum wage will not be getting a wage increase. And for many of them, it's the only raise in pay that they would see. So we're continuing to ask working Oregonians to do more with less, and it's really not acceptable. And the time has come to take action to raise the wage to a level where families can be economically secure and start to save for the future. That's why today, the Raise the Wage Coalition filed a ballot measure that increases Oregon's statewide wage floor to $13.50 over 2 years and restores the power of cities and towns to set their own wages so that communities like Portland and Eugene can enact minimums that better reflect the cost of living in those areas. So I'm proud to be joined today by Andrea Peluso from Family Forward Oregon.
Hello again, my name is Andrea Peluso with Family Forward Oregon, and the Raise the Wage Coalition has come together to secure a raise for workers in 2016, and we're pursuing all possible avenues to victory. We remain committed to working with lawmakers to pass a bill in the February 2016 legislative session. We believe it's their responsibility to do so, actually. However, we also know that powerful business interests representing corporations who pay their workers low wages are going to do everything they can to persuade legislators to do nothing to increase Oregon's minimum wage next year. We aren't willing to gamble with workers' lives and risk there being no raise for workers at all. We know that over 500,000 Oregon workers would benefit directly or indirectly if we raise the wage to $13.50 statewide. Earning $13.50 an hour would mean that an adult in rural Oregon would have a better chance to afford housing and transportation and still have some money left over to put food on the table and save a little for the future. Raising the wage to $13.50 will lift up 500,000 hardworking Oregonians and their families and will help us to grow an economy that works for all of us, not just for a select few. Joining us today is Jason Nance, a fast food worker from Eugene.
Good morning, my name's Jason Nance, and yes, I do work in the local fast food industry down in Lane County. When I first started working at this restaurant approximately 6 years ago, I thought it would be temporary until I found something better. I'm still there today, making less than $10 an hour as an entry-level manager. The last time I got a raise was in November when I got promoted to the management team, which was all of 40 cents, and shortly before the January raise in minimum wage. At my job, I'm responsible for managing the opening shifts at our store, which includes making sure the dishes and the preps are done, setting up the register tills, and ordering produce and merchandise to keep the store in stock. To do the job, I have to travel 4 miles from my house on public transit as I don't own my own car. My daily commute adds 45 to 50 minutes each way to my workday, which starts at 10 a.m. I work approximately 28 hours a week for various tax reasons for the business. When I can, I take on side jobs to help make ends meet, as obviously less than 30 hours a week does not do it. To get by, I've cut everything I can out of my budget. I don't eat out, I don't go to the movies, I haven't had my glasses replaced in over 3 years. I try to eat at work, since I do work at a restaurant at least 3 days a week to keep my food costs down. I rent a room in a house owned by a couple that very generously keeps my rent and expenses very low. I pay all of $300 a month, which includes utilities, and that's not something most people can say. I would like to start a family. I would like to do a lot of things, but I am not financially stable enough to do much. If my wages went up, I would be able to pay my student loans instead of avoiding them, as I am approximately $17,000 in debt to various community colleges in the state of Oregon. I would be able to buy new shoes and clothes for glasses, new shoes and clothes for work. I'd be able to buy new glasses. I'd be able to go see a dentist. Oregonians who put in an honest day's work should receive an honest day's pay. Instead, we're all living at the edge. Raising the minimum wage would give me and thousands of other Oregonians a chance at a better life where we can take care of ourselves and our families with our own paychecks. It's time to take action now. That's why we're here today, together to support raising the minimum wage here in Oregon with this ballot measure. We've waited long enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Next, we'll hear from Jeff Anderson at Ufcw Local 555. He's one of the chief petitioners on the Raise the Wage ballot measure.
My name is Jeff Anderson. I'm Secretary-Treasurer of Ufcw Local 555. I'm here on behalf of our local, which represents 20,000 workers in the state of Oregon and Southwest Washington. One of those workers that was mentioned is Nina Johnson, a home care worker in Eugene who is one of the chief petitioners. Nina was planning on joining us today, but isn't able because she's working to support 5 kids on a wage of $11.80 an hour, and she can't afford to miss a day of work. There are hundreds of thousands like Nina across Oregon. People are working their hard day in and out and trying to raise a family and make ends meet. The biggest myth we hear from those that oppose the minimum wage is that this is only going to help teenagers, yet we know that the average minimum wage earner is a 35-year-old woman. I think that really is something that should resonate, that it's not the stereotype that's in place. So here in Oregon, women make up more than half of the minimum wage workforce, and 2/3 of Oregon women are breadwinners and breadwinners of their families. It's time to raise the wage to $13.50 statewide and lift preemption so that working moms like Nina can provide for their families and still have something left over to save for the future. With that, I'd like to introduce Shawn Syren, the owner of a small business in Portland. Shawn?
Good morning. My name is Shawn Syren. For more than 10 years now, my family has owned Biddy McGraw's Public House in Portland. Not only does increasing wages help workers, but it also improves my business's bottom line by increasing employee productivity, by decreasing staff turnover. It's clear that raising the wage in Oregon is the right thing to do for businesses and for our communities. It ensures that everyone has the ability to thrive in the communities where they live and work. Oregon's economy is powered by small businesses, and paying employees a living wage for their hard work is one of the most effective things we can do to strengthen our economy. The concept behind raising the wage is simple. One business's employees is another's customer. More money in the pockets of more employees means paying customers for small businesses and more money being spent in the local economy. For my business to be successful, I need my employees to be paid a living wage so they can make ends meet. If my employees can't afford to pay their rent or put food on the table for their families, how can I expect them to show up to work and to give their full effort? As a business owner, it's clear to me that raising Oregon's minimum wage is critical to strengthening our local economy and creating an environment that supports small businesses and entrepreneurs. Raising the wage is the right thing to do for workers, for businesses, and for all of us.
Thanks, Shawn. So by filing a ballot measure today, we're making it clear that we aren't willing to gamble with workers' lives and risk another year going by without a raise for Oregon workers. The goal is to secure a raise for workers in 2016, and we're pursuing all possible paths to victory. We remain committed to working with lawmakers to pass a bill in the February 2016 legislative session and believe it is their responsibility to do so. But we have to file now so that we have time to qualify for the November 2016 ballot. If we were to wait to see if the legislature took action in February and if they came up short again, it would be too late for Oregon voters to have their say next year. We're happy to take any questions that you might have right now, and I'm going to invite Meg Niemi from SEIU Local 49 to join us.
How many signatures are you going to need?
Right now we're just qualifying for the ballot title, so it's a limited number of signatures currently.
A lot of senior citizens worry that raising the minimum wage would increase the cost of going out to a restaurant, a fast food restaurant. Maybe they'd have to charge a little bit more to pay their employees a little bit more money. And a lot of the senior citizens are on fixed income, Social Security, et cetera. And they feel like their wages are going to stay the same, or their earnings are going to stay the same, and everybody else are going to go up, and prices are going to go up, and they're going to be left with less.
Yeah, so we've definitely been looking at a lot of research to come up with the proposal that's in front of you today. We believe that it has a minimal impact on folks living on fixed incomes, and that it actually does a lot to drive a stronger local economy.
So for now, you're only going to qualify for the ballot title, and you're going to wait until after the February session to do the big push? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, we're going to move forward.
Okay. So you really need the 88,000, I mean, to answer the previous question.
That's right. Yeah, but the first step right now is just filing the title today.
This is a basic question, but why 1350?
You know, we looked at a lot of different measures of what it takes to get to a pretty minimal level of self-sufficiency in different counties in the state for different types of families, and feel that this is an adequate statewide number that gets the greatest number of families to the greatest sort of basic level of minimal self-sufficiency statewide. Another component of the proposal is to ensure that we overturn preemption, because we know that in some of our urban areas, especially Portland, 1350 is not adequate.
So just to clarify, this would be 1350 for the whole state and removing preemption.
That's right. Yeah, we think it's really important to get the state to a number that allows for the majority of counties and families in different counties to get to self-sufficiency, but also allow for some local areas, if they choose to exceed the state standard, which has so far been obviously preempted by state government. We think that they should overturn the preemption.
So the preemption would only work in one direction, right? You couldn't have a place that says, no, we want a $12 or whatever.
That's right. Yeah, we think it's really important to make sure that everyone's meeting the basic statewide floor, which would be $13.50, and then we would allow for some areas to do better than the floor. The other key component for us is we don't want to roll back any current protections for workers who work in industries that are often at risk of earning a lower minimum wage, like restaurant workers, so we do not support a tip credit, agriculture workers, or any other forms of exclusion that leave industries or types of workers behind.
I know that Raise the Wage is a large coalition. Maybe you can speak a little bit about how it came about and the history of the organization.
Yeah, so the Raise the Wage coalition has a broad set of partners that are community partners and labor partners who've all come together because we think it's important to see a wage increase in 2016. And you can find the full list of folks who are part of that coalition at raisethewageoregon.org.
There was a Legislative Fiscal Office report early this year that detailed the benefits cliff, and it showed for a single mother and 2 children, if you increase the wage to $13.10, that's going to result in a net negative of $30 a month when you take into account some of the federal benefits that are lost. Right. Is that something you're worried about or have thought about at all, or would put in a proposal? Do you have some solution for that? Absolutely. I mean, it's something that we're weighing really heavily. I would say that we had recognized some really significant flaws in that particular report, and don't actually agree with a lot of the outcomes of that report. But we do take very seriously the idea of folks coming out ahead at the end of an increase, and making sure that not only that they're earning wages that allow them to support their families, but that they can support the things that they need to help their families thrive.
And I would just add to that, you know, you see that corporations are making healthy profits in the state of Oregon, and we believe that if people are working full-time, that they ought to be able to make ends meet without needing public assistance. And so that's another reason that we feel like it's so important to raise the floor to $13.50.
There's a separate group gathering signatures for a $15 per hour measure. Why not work with them?
Yeah, we are. I mean, many of us are supportive of that ballot measure as well, and of the $15 effort, which is active all over the state, and particularly in some of the urban areas that we know need to see a wage increase that goes beyond $13.50. We support their efforts. I think we're all trying to work toward the same solution, which is a major wage increase for Oregon's workers in 2016.
So is the bottom line that this is more politically feasible for the legislature to pass this 1350 proposal? Is that why this is happening?
Well, I think it's really driven by our values, which are that we think we need a good statewide number that really gets gets to what we think families need, and the variety of different parts of the state, and that we also have been really hampered by the state government preempting local governments from being able to be responsive to the needs of their local areas to set wages that actually reflect the needs of their communities. So we think this is a fair proposal, and we hope that the legislature will work with us to enact it, but if they don't, we're going to pursue this pathway.
But why not lift the preemption and also go for 15 an hour from this campaign?
Yeah, we think it's important to lift the preemption, for a variety of different places. We feel like $13.50 is a reasonable wage increase for the entire state.
How much will your signature gatherers be paid?
I think we're planning, I can't answer that question specifically, but we can let you know. I assume that we'll be collecting a lot of signatures through volunteers.
There are some restaurant workers I've talked to in town that fear of the wage going up to $15 or $13.50, an increase like that. They don't work for a big corporation, but they've been working for 12, 13 years for the same business and have been able to make a living doing it. What do you say to them that have fears of this putting their mom and pop restaurant out of business?
Yeah. And I think this is probably our last question. I would say that we're looking at a lot of the implications of increasing wages in times that we've done that before and in different places, and find that what it means really for the local restaurant is that more people that live in the community have more expendable income to be able to eat out. And so yes, there may be some increase in cost, but there's also likely an increase in revenue. So thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate it. We'll stick around if there's any other individual questions that you'd like to ask, and thanks so much for your time. Thank you.